So what we're doing here is I'm teaching you how I teach this particular technique. Now, some of you will know I've been working with NLP for business and coaching for over 35 years. I used to say 30 years, it's over 35 years. I have been using this specific technique for many of these years, and I have been in lots of situations where we have helped change a culture within an organization by teaching this absolutely simple technique to managers. So it's a way that managers can actually respond to the people they're leading. Because the big problem we have in business is people, no matter where you go. I worked out in the Middle East for many years. I do a lot of work in Europe. I'm starting to do some more work in the States now. And everywhere you go in the world, the big problem is employee engagement. How do we get our employees engaged? How do we get people to connect? How do we get people to take personal responsibility? We know from a neuro-linguistic programming perspective that your brain is compelled to respond to anything you tell it. So if you ask good questions, you're going to get good responses. It's as simple as that. The people that are not engaged are not being encouraged to be engaged, in my opinion. I was a sales manager. I worked with Xerox. I was in sales for 25 years. And I could always engage the people that were in my teams because of the way I use language. So the way we use language helps to get people engaged. Excuse me. And if you don't ask, you don't get. So this is really a very simple technique that you will be able to take away and use from tonight. So different people perceive situations in different ways, and what can seem easy for one person will be a big problem for someone else. Focusing on problems keeps energy low and is contagious, reducing motivation, productivity, and performance. Focusing on solutions keeps your energy high. High energy is contagious, creating a can-do attitude that increases motivation, productivity, and performance. The more high energy people you have in your company, the more you can create the attitude and behavior to overcome challenges. One of the things, let me just explain again what NLP is, because some of you may know what NLP is and some of you may not. NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, it's the study of excellence and the methodology of how we create behavior. So when we're NLP trained, we can break down the components of behavior. There's internal components that happen in the inside world, and that is what we say to ourselves, the pictures we create, the feelings we create. And then there's the external components. That's what we can see and hear someone doing. So that can be voice tone, it can be body posture, it can be gestures, and it's the words that people use. So taking that together with NLP, neuro-linguistic skills, we can help people change how they feel about something. We can direct them with language, because language is linguistic is our middle name. We can direct other people's brains with the language we use. What I'd like to ask you, first of all, is, let me see, who can I pick on? There we go. Dilo, why are you wearing that top? Okay, you don't have to answer me, but look. Okay, Oliver, why you got headphones on? The minute you say to somebody why, you are jumping into their inside world and they're having to justify or give you the reason. They've got to give you the reason for something and they've got to justify it. So when we're talking about problems and you ask someone, why is that a problem? You're keeping them focused completely on the problem. You're keeping them, why is that a problem? They'll tell you all the reasons. They'll give you the whole narrative as to why it's a problem, all the reasons as to why it's a problem. You keep the brain totally focused on the problem. When you change what you say to someone, you're going to experience this in a moment. When you change what you say, then there's a big difference. Now, I can see lots of you are writing down. Fantastic. Make sure you've got a piece of paper and a pencil in front of you. If not, use your to take a note, because the exercise we're going to do, we need to write down. Okay. So I just want to say hello to Jackie and Harjinder's here and Leah. Okay, that's so problems seem to be part of our everyday work. The more resilient employees find great satisfaction from tackling new challenges and overcoming adversity, others find it difficult to overcome difficulties. Dealing with challenges effectively makes a difference between a highly engaged and satisfied employee and an employee seeking another job. Now, the thing that I've learned in all my years in business is very often leaders and managers don't give people permission to solve problems. People are not given permission. And very often when someone's not given permission, they don't know what they don't know. They don't know they're allowed to solve their problem. Because especially those of you who here coaches, put your hand up if you're coaching. Okay, those of you that are coaching, especially in business, coaching new leaders, coaching business managers, people in business, new managers like to be able to do as much as possible. Very often new managers struggle with saying no. They struggle with delegating. They struggle with being able to pass things on to people. They feel they're there to solve everybody's problem, and they're not. Because a good leader knows that they don't know everything, but they know people who do know. Think about an organization. Who's the most experienced? For example, customer service. Who's the most experienced people in customer service? Your customer service staff. Who are the most experienced people on a production line in a factory? The people that are working in the production line. So in an organization, your experts are the people that are doing the job. Now, remember, the brain is compelled to respond to anything you tell it. So let's look at what the word problem means. Now, first of all, before we go through that, can you go to www.problem.com and buy 5 kilos of problem? No. Which means in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, we call that a nominalization. In other words, it's a word that is being used as a noun that should actually be a verb or an action. And because it is not tangible, then people don't all have the same thing. If I hold this up, you can all see I've got a cup or a mug, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, you can all see this. And you can all agree on what this is. You could all draw it and you can all describe it because you're all seeing the same thing. Yeah? You might see the colours differently because we do know that colour hues and everything get changed, but you can see the shape. And in most cases, you'll be able to describe it. But when someone's talking about a problem, you've got no idea what that is. But yet we assume we know what it is. So what I want you to have a wee think about is look through these words. I'm not going to read them out. So it's a matter of situation regarded as unwelcome or harmful and needing to be dealt with and overcome. These are some of the words for problems. I want you, as you read through these words, notice the difference that each word has on your physiology. Either on your physiology or how you think about things. Are you starting to see each word is giving you a different reaction? There's a completely different thing. Well, it's a struggle to, it's a predicament. It's an obstacle. For some people, an obstacle will be insurmountable. For other people, an obstacle, great. We've got an obstacle, we can get around it. Distress or concern, it's a bother. Oh, it's a grief. It's an annoyance. So even just by looking at these words and asking yourself, because these are all words that if you look up problem or look for other words for problems, these are only some of them. There's a lot more than that come up. So one of the first things you've got to do is you've got to clarify. If someone says, I've got a problem, you've got to clarify what that is. But I'm going to show you how to do that in a moment. So these words describe a lot of different situations, and each of these situations, people respond differently depending how they think about that situation. Before you can help someone respond to what they perceive as a problem, you have to help them move out of thinking of this as a problem and reframe them into thinking about this as a situation that can be potentially changed. Our brains are compelled to answer any question we ask. People who know me, and I know there's a lot of familiar faces here, I talk about this all the time. Our brain is compelled to respond to what we tell it, and we know this from neuroscience. Asking good questions will always get you good results. Remember the word why? I want you to choose a problem. You're not going to tell us what the problem is, but I want you to choose a problem. And I want you to, now, I'm teaching this in two parts. What we're doing just now is the way I teach it to people. The second part is how you use it with people. Okay, so this first part is just for you. Okay, so I would like you to choose a problem. And I'm using the word choose rather than saying think of a problem, because every single person's got more than one problem. And then ask yourself, why is this a problem? And then write down no more than 3 reasons. I just want 3 reasons. Why is it a problem? The minute you say why, you've got to come up with because, which is the justifications or reason. And if you only come up with 1 reason, maybe it's not a problem at all. But you can't say to your brain, and what else? Until you come up with 3 reasons as to why this is a problem. Okay, has everyone got 3? Now, Jackie, would you mind if I did the next part of this with you? Yeah, there's another bit I want to do here. So let me just put Jackie onto Spotlight, and I'll put myself onto Spotlight. So you can just give me something that you're happy to share about. You can make it up, okay? So I want you to come to me and say to me, Fiona, I've got a problem, but go into a real problem state, Jackie. Take yourself into a real problem state. And then I'm going to ask you what that is.
Fiona, I have a problem.
Okay, what's the situation? Okay, let me rerun. Sorry, I didn't mean to say situation straight away. Okay, do it again. Yeah, Jack, I can see Jack went, I don't think that was right. That didn't work. Okay, so there you go. Come back with me and really strong, I've got a problem.
Fiona, I've got a problem.
Okay, what's your problem, Jackie? Okay, you don't have to tell me at this point in time. What did I do there? Jackie took a great big deep breath and went, oh, I've got a problem. I matched that. I matched the physiology. I went, oh. Just by taking the same breath as Jackie took, I've locked her into that problem now. She's stuck with that problem. And every time she talks about this problem, she'll be talking in the same voice tone, and it will get heavier and heavier. And we've got this big thing we can't get out of. Okay, so this time, rerun. So again, come to me with, I've got a problem.
Fiona, I've got a problem.
Okay, so what's the situation, Jackie?
Situation is, do I need to go into it?
Just make up something.
The situation is I can't decide between 2 choices.
Okay, so what needs to happen to help you decide that?
I think I need to really look at my pros and cons.
Okay, and what else?
I write it down, see what's the best thing, and then think about how this is going to affect me in the next month to a year from now.
Okay, and what else? Just look at one other scenario.
What do I truly want to create?
Okay, so what's the first thing that you think you should do for this?
Decide what I really want to create, and then look at the pros and cons.
Okay, brilliant. Let me know how you. Okay, so you've got your order you're going to do it in. So let me know how you go on with it, Jackie. Okay, thank you. Okay, so thank you very much, Jackie. Now, I just jumped Jackie in there, and I don't know whether this is a real problem or not, because I said to Jackie, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. So what I did there was, instead, it was 3 things. So before we go into the explanation of it, this time, I want you to think of that problem you had and change the question to yourself. Before you said, why is it a problem? The question you're now asking yourself is, what has to happen to resolve this? Or what needs to happen to resolve this? Now, the question, what needs to happen or what has to happen, is completely different to what do I have to do? If I had said to Jackie, what do you have to do? In this situation, Jackie actually came out with things that she could do herself. But in a business scenario, especially if you're a new manager and you're helping, because just using language this way changes culture, and I'll tell you how it changes culture in a moment. When you say to someone, okay, so what do you have to do? They can turn around and say, I don't know, that's why I've come to you with the problem. But the minute you say to them, what has to happen? Or what needs to happen? And you can coach them a little bit. If they say, I don't know, okay, if you did know. Or you could actually say to them, okay, maybe this is something you don't have to even deal with at this point of time, or is there someone else can help? Some people, if they're really stuck thinking that they're the only person, but usually just by saying what has to happen or what needs to happen. Did you see what happened to Jackie's face? Her eyes went up, her eyes started to search. She went into a transderivational search. In other words, just by changing from the why will keep someone absolutely stuck as they give you the story that they're running in their head, because everyone's got all the reasons and justifications as to why this is a problem. Okay, so that problem becomes really real. The minute you say what has to happen or what needs to happen, you're putting the brain into searching mode. The moment you have got the brain in searching mode, you've got the person no longer stuck. Now, one of the things we do know in NLP, and it was Dr. Richard Bandler, one of the founders of NLP, co-founders of NLP, who I was in Richard Bandler's assisting team for 8 years. And he always talks about everyone will give you their problem and their solution within the first few minutes of listening to them. Even without this technique, if you just listen and get someone talking about a situation, and especially the minute you're going, what needs to happen, they'll start telling you all the things that need to happen, because they already know what has to happen, or they wouldn't be telling you it's a problem. So what you're doing there, yes, Mike, have you got a question? You're on mute.
Yeah, so my question is just what you were relating that Richard Bandler mentioned about the person will reveal the solution in their first dialogue with you.
Yeah.
So you ask them the question, what is the problem? And then they state what the problem is. And even without prompting, you say, if you just simply listen, their dialogue will lead you to what they think the solution to the problem is.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just listen.
Okay.
And people will start to talk, especially once you get them really talking. And if you prompt them with, so what needs to happen? What needs to happen to resolve this? If you start changing the word problem to situation, if you don't go into a problem state with them, if you stay in a state of curiosity, and if you stay in a state of genuine interest, and it can be, so what? How can this be overcome? How can this be resolved? If I'm coaching, I don't always do what needs to happen, but I keep this very specific as a technique that I teach to managers in business. So we talk about moving the mindset from problems to solution. When someone comes and says they've got a problem or a challenge or whatever word they want to use, just stay out of the problem state and just say, okay, what's the situation? So the situation all of a sudden becomes neutral. It's no longer got a tag on it saying it's a problem or it's a challenge. There's no tag. It's neutral. It's a situation. And then you start to explore, okay, so what needs to happen? What's going to happen? How can this be resolved? And what has happened with the companies, I've taught this to thousands of people, but I've been very fortunate to a few companies put different layers of management through our training. And we get, especially if we manage to get into senior managers first, they start using this with their managers, start using this with their team leaders. The team leaders start using this with supervisors. And within 6 months, You've got people who would come previously dumping problems on managers, coming up and saying, I had a problem. I just want to run this by you. I can solve it this way or this way. So people actually they'll still come to their manager for a final, is that okay? I've seen it happen so often. And all it is just is a change of language, and it's a very subtle change of language. But when people start doing this as it cascades down an organization, the whole culture changes without people saying, we've got to stop focusing on problems. Because the minute we say, you've got to stop thinking about purple rabbits, the minute you say you've got to stop focusing on whatever you say you've got to stop doing, that's what the brain will start doing. So just by shifting this, but in conversation, without actually using this in a very specific way, Mike, so many times, I've tested everything I've learned from Richard Bandler, I've tested like mad, because he encourages you to test everything like mad. And I just used to start to be amazed when you really listen. People are giving you everything that can be solved for what their situation is, which is phenomenal. Yeah. So now you've got that situation, write down at least 5 things. So ask yourself what has to happen and write down at least 5 things. 5 possible solutions. Now, it doesn't have to be the stuck in stone solution. Doesn't have to be the perfect solution. This is almost encouraging you to brainstorm with yourself. And one of the answers could be, I don't need to do anything with it just now. That's a potential. And the minute you get stuck, you ask yourself, and what else? And keep going until you've got at least 5 for this exercise, at least 5 possible ways of resolving this situation. And remember the magic coaching question, and what else? Because if you say that, your brain will come up with something else. Okay, so who's all got 5? Put your hand up as soon as you've got 5. Let me know when you've got 5. Okay, when am I correct in now saying, those of you who wrote 3 reasons why it's a problem, you now have 5 possible solutions. You've got more possible solutions than you have reasons for it to be a problem. This is why I say I teach it this way. And I teach it, this is to show, especially to managers. I teach this to my coaching clients, as well as teaching in the corporate training we do. So this is a way that you can show someone, look, just by changing what you say to yourself, you can, and you make sure they limit it just to 3 reasons, and then at least 5 possible solutions. When this is then being used in the real world, what you would do, especially for a manager, if you're coaching a manager that's working with their team, so a team member comes up and says, I've got a problem. Okay, what's the situation? And they tell you, say, okay, what has to happen? And you're only looking for 2, maybe 3 maximum. You're not looking for 5. You're only looking for 2 or 3. And then what you would say to them, okay, what do you think is the best solution to go ahead with? What's the best or what's the first, depending on what the situation is. Jackie gave us a scenario there where she put things in order. So you can say, what's the best, what do you think is the best one? Now, if the person has given you 2 or 3 possible solutions that are not that good because they don't have the experience, but you as a manager have a lot more experience. Now, remember, I'm coming from this perspective because I know a lot of you are going into, a lot of you work in coaching with organizations. As you're the manager, you can then say, absolutely brilliant. I would only, if I get the first one and it's not that good, and I get the second one that's not that good, I wouldn't go to a third one. I would say, fantastic, that's brilliant. However, my experience, you could try this way. This could be a way that would work, might work great, but that's great. So you thank them for thinking. So what you're actually doing here is you're encouraging people, you're giving people permission to think. And you're giving people permission to come up with their own solutions. Because in business, we don't get that as part of our manual. Managers don't get as part of the manual. You've got to give your team members permission to think, permission to come up with things. Because if people keep coming up with solutions and you keep blocking them off, they'll just stop. So what you're doing is you're helping some, and in some situations, I've known some managers who someone has come up with, maybe they've done it a second time, they'll let them go with one of the not really good solutions and let them figure it out for themselves. But they thank them, that they give them the opportunity to go and learn, and to learn from something that maybe wasn't the most effective way. Because that is how we learn. We learn from feedback, we learn from mistakes, we learn from trying something that didn't work. Okay? What you've done there, it's choose a problem and then take yourself into the same situation. You write down the 5 possible solutions. Only 3 things have changed. You changed the word problem to solution, so you've just reframed and changed that word from problem to solution. You change the why to what has to happen, and you stay out of the problem state. So only 3 things. You stay out of the problem state. In other words, you keep really neutral, and you just ask what has to happen, and talk about the, sorry, I've got solution there. That should be situation. So you change the word problem to situation. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put you into breakout rooms. Let me see. We're all going to go into breakout rooms for 6 minutes tonight. Those of you who are new here, I think most people have been here before. It's just really to have a quick chat, say hello, and maybe share some of the things that you're taking away from tonight, or maybe situations where you've used something similar to this,